Okay, so we're going to keep talking about community ecology here. Last lecture, we left off with this idea of succession, how communities change and ecosystems change. And it just depends on, are you walking into an established community that has been there for thousands or millions of years, or is it a brand new community that just began within the very, very recent past? Um, so they're all going to go through succession. It's just, again, what's the starting point for them? So that brings us to the two different types of succession. A community that starts out with really nothing there. All right, this isn't going to be a very scientific explanation, but trying to get the point across. A community that starts out with nothing, no life, just basic stuff. Basic rock, abiotic features, etc. But you don't have anything living there. That's a community starting primary succession. Better example would be to think about a parking lot. So if you have a parking lot that gets abandoned, there's asphalt. There's no life there on that asphalt. Give it time. Watch. Wait. Eventually, life will show up. Now, the first life to enter into the community are called the pioneer species. These are producers. Lichens are often one of the pioneers. Think about a lichen. It's got the algae and the fungal component. The algae runs photosynthesis. The fungal component breaks down organic or inorganic matter, provides nutrients to the algae. They work together as a team. There's that mutualism. But the producers are the first ones in. They establish the foundations, the base of the community, the producer base. They establish that. Then other species can start to come in. So once you get your producers built up, then herbivores can come in. You have herbivores, then you're going to need carnivores, you're going to need omnivores, you're going to need detritivores, decomposers. All those other species that perform those ecological niches come in. But the pioneers establish a base of the community. They will actually change the abiotic, they will change the abiotic features of the community. They help build and establish new abiotic features. So this picture, this old this old stone church, the stone wall, gets abandoned. Over time, eventually, producers will start to grow on it. They will crumble that rock. They will break it down. They will change it. And as they're breaking down the rock, they're making the nutrients available to other producers, to detritivores, to other groups, and then the diversity is going to start to increase. This is a basic concept of succession, is changing over time. But again, primary is when you start really with nothing. And an important group to remember are your pioneers. They are the first ones in. Now, sadly, for most of the pioneers, those poor guys get usually outcompeted by new groups coming in. They get kicked out. They get pushed into extinction. That's not the nature of a pioneer, to stay and be diverse and to establish communities forever. In a sense, their ecological role is to build ecosystems and then move on. Right? So that's the basic idea behind primary succession. Okay, so what I want you to think about are some of the movies that are out there that are trying to depict life after humans have disappeared or the human population has crashed. So there's an older movie called I Am Legend with Will Smith. There's a History Channel program, Life After People. And what they're looking at is the process of succession. Now, or for those of you Walking Dead fans, what's happened? this is where Hollywood really doesn't understand biology, because you look at, if you've watched this movie, I Am Legend with Will Smith, he's in New York years after this disease wipes out the population of the world, and he's living in New York. Well, it's going to regrow a lot more than what they show in the movie. So they truly don't understand how succession works. But the concept is there. Look at any ancient civilization, the Maya in Central America, the Aztec, the Inca. Those civilizations disappeared, succession happened, and reclaimed what humans had built. Nature will constantly always go through succession, whether we're here or not. What we do is we just kind of hold it at bay in some cases. But once we step out, succession keeps going. All right, so that was primary succession. The other one to talk about here is called secondary succession. So secondary succession is when some kind of disturbance sets a community back. And this process is going to occur when there's already life in that community. So think about a farm field. In the springtime, think about, we got all these fields that are being planted, being crops put in. So you go, okay, I got my farm field. Corn, beans, whatever's going to go in. Imagine if that field was not planted. So here's this year's farm field. We're not going to plant that field this year. Give it a year, 2 years, 3 years. You're going to start to get weeds growing up. You're going to get little shrubs growing up. You're going to leave it alone. 5, 6, 7 years, now you got these big shrubby bushes in there. You have small trees. 8, 10, 12 years, you have bigger trees. Give it 20, 25 years, and that field will have reverted back to a forest. But the key with secondary succession is life is already there. There's seeds in the seed bank. There's invertebrates living in the soil. There's bacteria, decomposers, etc. Life is there for this process of secondary succession to occur. So what will often happen is during the process of succession, communities are, I don't want to say marching, moving their way towards a thing known as climax community. So here's our community today, and it's moving through succession, doing these changes over time. And the end goal over here, let me add the box, is called climax community. So a climax community is a mature, resilient, stable, diverse, stable, oh, bad typos, stable type of community. This is the direction succession is moving. It's not a conscious direction, but it's just a direction that ecosystems move towards as they go through the process of succession. Now, the challenge is communities are trying to get there, but different events come in. Different natural disasters happen. You had a flood. So that knocked your community back to here. All right, so your community then regroups, retools, and says, okay, let's keep moving forward, keep moving past where the flood happened, keep going towards climax, and then, oh, another natural disaster, another event occurs. Here's your tornado or hurricane, and that knocks your community back to here. And then the community recovers, rebuilds, and keeps trying to move forward to try to reach climax. There are very few communities in this country that are considered climax communities. The closest that we could call a climax community would be the old growth forests in the Pacific Northwest. Those redwood forests, those communities have been established for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. They are mature, resilient, diverse, stable. They're beautiful communities. This is why we need to protect them, because all the dynamics, the interactions, and the things going on in those communities have established and evolved together over major amounts of time. So now you go in and cut down some of those trees, those interactions are completely disrupted. And it will take a long time for that to recover. Think about Illinois. We have 2 terrestrial ecosystems here. Temperate deciduous forest and prairie. Those are the 2 natural native biomes or ecosystems in Illinois. Find me a chunk of forest, a community of forest in Illinois that is over 200 years old. It doesn't exist. We can find examples of trees. There's trees in this area in Menard County that are hundreds of years old, but not communities because we've disturbed them. Find me a native prairie that hasn't been replanted in the last 50 years, you have a gold mine. Native communities have been disturbed, destroyed, altered, and just trashed by humans. So when we do find climax communities, they are something that is, again, an ecological gem that we want to protect and preserve. So we do have deciduous forests here, but even if you've gone down to Shawnee National Forest in southern Illinois, those trees were planted back in the 1930s. So they're about 90 years old for a lot of them, which is great. It's a beautiful ecosystem, but it's nowhere close to hundreds of years old. It's nowhere close to, wow, these oak trees are 300 years old. Those are climax communities, and we don't have many of them in this country anymore because we've knocked them backwards. Now, take us out of the picture, those trees, those forests will move back towards climax. And if they're left alone, they will eventually reach that status. So, all right, now as we look at community ecosystems, I'm going to get started in this lecture and then we'll wrap it up just briefly in the last piece of this lecture. As we look at ecosystems, when we look at these different communities, we really have to understand how things are connected. And an important thing to look at is identifying the keystone species within your community. So the first thing you have to do is establish the parameters of your community. So take a look at this picture from out from Colorado. We go out west, we have this beautiful mountain, we have these forests, we have a mixture of deciduous trees and evergreens, and then we have this pond and a mountain stream. What is the parameter of your community? Pick your boundaries. It could be the entire picture, and that's fine. But you then need to tell me, what species do you consider to be the climax species? I'm sorry, the keystone species. Which one plays the greatest role in maintaining the diversity of that entire community? Now, I'm going to go simple. I'm going to be lazy and take the easy route. I'm just going to look at this pond community. That is a community I want to focus my research on. So I'm going to look at this and say, okay, what is the keystone species here? Well, the pond is here because of the dam. The dam was built because of the beavers. Take the beavers out of the picture, the dam breaks, all this water comes downstream, you lose your pond. In this particular community, beavers are the keystone species. If I'm looking at the bigger picture, the entire system, beavers are not keystone because I need to look at a species that covers the entire mountains, forest, stream community. So start with identifying the boundaries of your community, and then let's figure out the keystone species. We'll talk about keystones in our last part of the lecture.